This is a journey into the ancient Mediterranean world, a place not of one people or one empire, but a delicate mosaic of cultures: Egyptians and Minoans, Phoenicians and Greeks, Etruscans and Carthaginians, each leaving their imprint upon this blue expanse. This was not merely a sea, it was a world in itself. The Romans would one day call it Mare Nostrum, our sea. But long before that, it was everyone's sea, a shared space of wonder, war, worship, and whispers across the water. Imagine the salt breeze against your face as you stand on the deck of a small merchant vessel. The sky turns from rose to gold, and in the distance, faint outlines of whitewashed cities cling to rocky shores. The rhythmic creak of wood and rope blends with the cries of seabirds. You're surrounded not by silence, but by the living pulse of an ancient ecosystem of ships sailing between islands, of port cities alive with language and song, of ideas exchanged alongside amphorae of oil and wine. We begin this journey not with a single story, but with a tapestry, a slow unfolding of interconnected chapters that begin over 10,000 years ago, when humans first settled the shores of the eastern Mediterranean, and continue through the Bronze Age kingdoms, the flourishing of classical Greece, the rise of empires, and finally, the enduring legacy that shapes the modern world even now. As we drift through the centuries, we'll pause to walk through market squares, to listen to poets recite beneath olive trees, and to gaze up at marble temples that gleam under the sun. We'll learn how early sailors navigated by the stars, how alphabetic writing emerged from Phoenician hands, and how the first laws, myths, and cities arose from fertile deltas and dry plateaus. The ancient Mediterranean was not a static stage, but a dynamic, breathing world. Civilizations rose not in isolation, but through contact, sometimes peaceful, sometimes violent with each other. War and diplomacy, myth and memory, architecture and art, all flowed with the tides of the sea. The Minoan fresco speaks to the Egyptian scribe. The Greek philosopher converses with Babylonian mathematics. The Roman engineer learns from Carthaginian harbors. In this story, every shore is a chapter, every island a footnote in time. And as you relax deeper into sleep, we will glide across waters lit only by the moon and the memory of ages. Each chapter will bring us closer to understanding not just the events that shaped this world, but the feelings, the rhythms, and the quiet wonders of daily life that made it real. So let your body soften, your breathing slow. Let the ancient winds carry you gently back. Tonight, you are not merely learning. You are remembering somewhere deep within. These lands and waters feel familiar, like echoes of a dream you've almost had before. This is not just history. This is home, a distant, beautiful home, long past, yet still glowing in the mind. Now let us begin. We begin on the shorelines of deep time, a time before writing, before kings, before temples, a time when the Mediterranean was already ancient, yet still young in the eyes of the civilizations it would one day cradle. Around 10,000 BCE, as the Ice Age gave way to warmer climates, humans slowly migrated and settled along the coastal regions of what we now call the Mediterranean Basin, stretching from the Levant and Egypt in the east to Spain and the Maghreb in the west. These first settlers were not yet builders of monuments or cities. They were gatherers, hunters, and early farmers drawn to the abundant water, mild climate, and fertile soil of this inland sea. Imagine one such settlement, a cluster of reed and mud homes along a river feeding into the sea. In the early morning haze, children gather shells along the beach, while women tend to garden plots. Clay pots dry in the sun, while men prepare fishing nets with careful patience. These people speak no known language, leave no written words, yet their rhythms of life are the quiet foundation for everything to come. As we drift forward, we begin to see the slow transformation from villages to civilizations. By 7000 BCE, Farming communities have taken root, especially in the Levant, modern-day Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Palestine, where early grains like wheat and barley are cultivated. Goats and sheep are domesticated. Tools become more complex. Pottery becomes widespread. And through trade or migration, these ideas begin to travel. To the west, on the Greek mainland and Aegean islands, Neolithic communities also emerge isolated but vibrant. On Crete, the seeds of what will one day become the Minoan civilization begin to stir beneath volcanic soil and mountain-fed springs. To the south, in Egypt, settlements cluster along the life-giving Nile, a river that flows northward into the Mediterranean like a slow exhalation. These early Egyptians learned to track the annual floods, plant crops, and build stone structures small at first, but hinting at the grandeur to come. But it is around 3,300 BCE, with the rise of metallurgy, that the Mediterranean truly begins to shimmer with the bronze-tinted light of early civilization. This is the beginning of the Bronze Age, a period marked by the widespread use of bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, for tools, weapons, and ornaments. With bronze, humans carve harder stone, build stronger ships, and wage more decisive wars, and perhaps most importantly, they begin to write. The first true civilizations of the Mediterranean arise in this era, powerful, organized societies with cities, temples, palaces, and political hierarchies. Let us begin in Mesopotamia, just east of the Mediterranean. Though not on the sea itself, the Sumerians of this fertile crescent develop cuneiform writing, city-states like Uruk and Ur, and the first codified legal systems. Their influence will reach the sea through trade routes that spill into Levantine ports. Along the Levantine coast, new city-states emerge, Byblos, Tyre, and Sidon centers of trade and shipbuilding. These will later become the heartlands of the Phoenicians, but already by 2500 BCE, they are bustling hubs of maritime exchange, linking the riches of the East with the sea routes of the Mediterranean. To the southwest, Egypt rises swiftly and dramatically. Around 3100 BCE, the kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt are unified under a single ruler, Narmer, often identified with Menes. This unification marks the dawn of pharaonic Egypt, with dynastic rule, monumental tombs, and a powerful pantheon of gods. The pyramids of Giza, built around 2600 BCE, still rise today as solemn witnesses to this astonishing era. Though Egypt's heart lies along the Nile, its ports at Memphis, Byblos, and later Alexandria give it access to Mediterranean trade exchanging gold, grain, linen, and papyrus for cedar, wine, and incense. Their ships, sleek, oared, and shallow, drift from port to port, their sails swollen with desert wind. Now let us drift northward to the island of Crete in the Aegean Sea. Here, by 2000 BCE, something new begins to flourish, a civilization both elegant and enigmatic. The Minoans. The Minoans build palaces, but they are unlike any others. The most famous at Knossos is a sprawling complex of courtyards, storage rooms, fresco-covered halls, and mysterious shrines. There are no massive walls suggesting peace and naval strength rather than defense. Inside these palaces, life seems colorful and refined. Frescoes depict dolphins, bull-leaping athletes, and ladies with flounced skirts. The Minoans develop their own script, Linear A, still undeciphered today. Their pottery, art, and architecture speak of sophistication, and their trading vessels reach as far as Egypt and the Levant. Daily life in Minoan Crete may have been a world of rituals and nature reverence. Offerings to a goddess of nature are placed in cave shrines. Children play in sunlit courtyards. Artisans carve ivory and shape gold into jewelry. Women, unusually prominent in imagery, may have played significant religious or social roles. But like all civilizations, the Minoans are vulnerable to the earth and to time. Around 1600 BCE, a cataclysmic volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, modern Santorini, devastates the region. Ash clouds blot the sun. Tidal waves strike the coastlines. The Minoan world begins to weaken. Soon after, the Mycenaeans, warlike Greeks from the mainland, rise in strength. From around 1600 to 1200 BCE, the Mycenaeans dominate mainland Greece and extend their reach into the Aegean. They adopt elements of Minoan culture, including writing now in a decipherable form known as Linear B, used to record palace inventories and religious dedications. Mycenaean palaces at Mycenae, Tyrans, and Pylos are fortified with massive stone walls, cyclopean in legend and appearance. Their kings command from megarons, great halls with central hearths, while artisans craft ornate armor, masks, and vessels. It is this era, rich in trade and tension, that gives rise to the legends later captured in Homer's epics: Agamemnon, Achilles, Odysseus, and the fabled Trojan War. Though much of this remains myth, archaeology has uncovered real cities like Troy, hinting at a historical core to the stories. But by 1200 BCE, disaster strikes again. Across the eastern Mediterranean, civilizations begin to collapse nearly simultaneously. The Mycenaean palaces are burned. The Hittite Empire in Anatolia vanishes. Egyptian texts speak of mysterious sea peoples attacking from the north. Trade routes disintegrate. Cities are abandoned. This widespread breakdown, known as the Bronze Age collapse, marks the end of one world and the hesitant beginning of another. A long, dark twilight descends, especially over Greece, where writing is forgotten and centuries of silence follow. But the Mediterranean does not go dark. Farther east and south, new powers stir. In Phoenicia, cities rebuild. In Canaan, small kingdoms begin to rise. In Egypt, resilience gives way to revival. And slowly, out of ruin, a new age will rise, one of iron, alphabet, and empire. But that is a story for the next chapter. As we drift gently out of the shadows of the Bronze Age collapse, the Mediterranean world is quieter, emptier, but not still. The great palaces are gone, but life persists. In the ashes of ruin, new powers emerge, smaller in scale but brighter in influence. It is now, in this interlude of seeming simplicity, that two peoples begin to shape the future in ways more profound than empire: the Phoenicians and the Hebrews. Let us first turn to the Phoenicians, the master sailors of the Mediterranean. Their cities, Tyre, Sidon, Byblos, and later Carthage, sit like jeweled ports along the eastern coastline of the sea in what is now modern-day Lebanon. The Phoenicians are not an empire in the traditional sense. They are a maritime network independent city-states linked by shared language, trade, and a deep relationship with the sea. By around 1100 BCE, Phoenician ships are once again slicing across the waves, their hulls loaded with purple-dyed textiles, cedarwood, glassware, and ivory carvings. The fabled Tyrian purple, extracted from tiny murex sea snails, becomes one of the most coveted luxury goods of the ancient world, a dye fit for kings in sacred robes. Their ships are sturdy, sleek, and clever in design. They hug coastlines by day and navigate by stars at night. Phoenician sailors explore the Aegean, the North African coast, the Balearic Islands, and as far west as the Straits of Gibraltar, which they call the Pillars of Melkart, after their sea god. Beyond goods, the Phoenicians carry ideas, and one of these will reshape the human mind: the alphabet. Unlike the complex cuneiform of Mesopotamia or the thousands of characters in Egyptian hieroglyphics, the Phoenician script is simple, elegant, and revolutionary. It is based on sounds, each letter representing a single consonant, just 22 characters. Learn those, and you can read anything. This phonetic writing system, developed around 1050 BCE, is easily adapted and passed along through trade and cultural exchange. It travels west with the Phoenicians, and east into Aramaic and Hebrew lands. Centuries later, it will form the basis for Greek, Latin, Arabic, and modern Western alphabets. While the Phoenicians are navigating the sea, a different kind of journey is unfolding inland among the Hebrews, or ancient Israelites, in the hill country of Canaan. Their story is not told through trade or palatial architecture, but through scripture, memory, and the long evolution of monotheism, the belief in a single, all-powerful God. By the late 13th century BCE, Hebrew tribes are settling in the highlands of modern-day Israel and Palestine. The earliest stories of their people, Abraham, Moses, the Exodus, are transmitted orally, only later to be written down in sacred texts. Around 1000 BCE, a united monarchy forms under King Saul and then David, who captures Jerusalem and makes it his capital. His son Solomon builds the first temple, a holy sanctuary to house the Ark of the Covenant, and honor Yahweh, the singular Hebrew God. This development, the centralization of faith, temple, and text, is a turning point. Unlike neighboring religions with many gods tied to nature or place, the Hebrew tradition speaks of a universal moral lawgiver beyond time and space. This idea, still young and evolving, will one day echo through Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Hebrews, too, adopt the alphabet, a variant of the Phoenician script, adapted into Paleo-Hebrew. And though their kingdoms rise and fall, split between Israel in the north and Judah in the south, their written legacy endures. The Hebrew Bible becomes one of the most influential texts in human history. But for now, their world is still small, surrounded by larger forces, Egypt to the south, Assyria to the northeast, and the Phoenician cities along the coast. The sea, meanwhile, continues to carry change. The Phoenicians expand westward. Around 814 BCE, according to legend, Queen Dido of Tyre founds the city of Carthage on the coast of modern Tunisia. Whether myth or memory, Carthage soon grows into a powerful trade hub, sending expeditions even beyond the Pillars of Hercules, perhaps as far as the Atlantic coast of Africa or Iberia. Daily life in Phoenician cities hums with activity. Merchants haggle in bustling markets, shipbuilders carve cedar in dockyards, priests offer incense to Baal and Astarte in open-air temples. Children learn the alphabet carved into wax tablets. Seafarers pour offerings into the sea before each voyage. In contrast, the highland villages of the Hebrews are quieter, more pastoral. Shepherds lead flocks through terraced hills. Women grind barley for bread, light Sabbath lamps. Scribes carefully copy scrolls in Hebrew script. And once a week, under olive trees or in stone courtyards, the people gather to hear the Torah, the teachings of their God. Between these two cultures, the maritime Phoenicians and the scripture-guarding Hebrews, something profound begins to take shape in the Mediterranean. A world no longer ruled only by kings and conquest, but by language, belief, and memory. And so, as the Iron Age unfolds around 1000 to 700 BCE, the Mediterranean begins to sparkle with new centers of influence. The Greeks, soon to emerge in strength. The Assyrians and Babylonians, flexing power from Mesopotamia. The Egyptians, still enduring. And the Carthaginians, rising fast in the west. But in the quiet inlets and scroll-filled sanctuaries, the alphabet continues to spread. It is not the sword, but the stylus, that leaves the most lasting mark. And as night settles over the Mediterranean shores, a child somewhere in Tyre copies a letter onto a clay shard. Alep, the ox, the first letter of the Phoenician alphabet. And from that small act, a whole new way of seeing the world will ripple outward for thousands of years. Let the rhythms of the waves lull you, and the quiet beauty of letters soothe your mind. The Mediterranean has begun to find its voice in ink, in script, and in the sacred silence between words. Now, sleep may come softly, or you may drift onward to the next chapter. The sea changes again. By the 8th century BCE, the Greek world is rising not as an empire, but as a mosaic of small, independent city-states called polis. Each polis is a world unto itself, cradled between sea and mountain, and bound not by kings, but by shared customs, temples, and memory. Let us sail now to one such place, a rocky, sun-drenched peninsula, surrounded by olive groves and temples gleaming with white marble. This is Athens. But before Athens, there is Homer. In the 700s BCE, the poet sings of Achilles, of Odysseus, of a war fought long ago at Troy. His words, shaped from oral tradition, are stitched into verse and eventually inscribed into Greek script, an adaptation of the Phoenician alphabet, with vowels added. The Iliad and the Odyssey are not just stories, they are cultural anchors, giving the Greeks a shared heroic past, a mythic memory of honor, wrath, fate, and homecoming. Children memorize these verses by heart. They become moral lessons, models of courage, and the backdrop of an emerging Greek identity. But the real miracle is not in song. It is in the way the Greeks begin to question. In Miletus, on the coast of Asia Minor, early thinkers, the pre-Socratics, begin to ask, what is the world made of? Why does it change? Can nature be understood without the gods? Thales says, all is made of water. Anaximander imagines an eternal substance, the apeiron, the boundless. Pythagoras finds order in numbers. These thinkers, though primitive by modern standards, are doing something new, seeking natural explanations. This is the birth of philosophy, from the Greek philosophia, love of wisdom. Back in the Polis, daily life is vibrant, communal, and often noisy. In the agora or marketplace, citizens gather to trade, argue, listen, and vote. Men wear chitons and debate politics beneath porticos. Women tend to the oikos, the household often restricted from public life, yet central to the home's function and memory. Each polis has its own structure, but all share features. Temples to the gods, gymnasia, public baths, and amphitheaters where tragedies echo under moonlit skies. The Greeks worship a pantheon of anthropomorphic gods, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, but their rituals are also social events, binding the polis together in festival and feast. And yet, beneath this cultural flowering lies tension. The 5th century BCE brings the clash of civilizations, the Persian Wars. From the vast empire to the east, the Persian kings Darius, then Xerxes send mighty armies across the sea. They burn Athens, but the Greeks, especially Athens and Sparta, unite in fierce resistance. At Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea, they fight not only for land, but for a way of life. Victory brings glory and confidence. Athens, in particular, enters a golden age under the leadership of Pericles. Temples rise on the Acropolis, including the Parthenon, a masterpiece of proportion and grace. It is built not just as a house for Athena, but as a symbol of Athens' spirit, democratic, bold, and beautiful. For it is Athens that pioneers democratia, the rule of the people. Citizens, though only free Athenian men, vote on laws, serve in juries, and shape policy. This system is messy, noisy, imperfect, but it is new, a political experiment that echoes into modernity. Within this vibrant civic world, philosophy deepens. Socrates, a stonemason's son, walks barefoot through the agora, asking relentless questions. What is justice? What is courage? How do we know what we know? He claims to know nothing, and in that nothingness, he finds wisdom. He teaches not by lecture, but by dialogue. His method is dialectical: probe, challenge, reflect, to awaken the soul. But Socrates unnerves people. His refusal to flatter, his public inquiries into piety and power, these lead to his trial and death in 399 BCE. He drinks hemlock calmly, surrounded by students. His student, Plato, writes it all down. In works like the Republic, he imagines ideal societies governed by philosopher kings. He founds the Academy, a place of learning in a quiet grove outside Athens. Plato's own student Aristotle grounds philosophy in observation. He dissects nature, categorizes logic, explores ethics, and teaches that virtue is found in the golden mean, the balance between extremes. Aristotle will tutor Alexander the Great, but we are not there yet. While Athens thrives, other polis do not fare as well. Sparta, with its rigid militarism, rejects philosophy and art, prioritizing discipline. Women there enjoy more public freedom, but society is austere. Slaves called helots sustain the economy through forced labor. Soon, the Greek world turns on itself. The Peloponnesian War, a brutal conflict between Athens and Sparta, lasts nearly 3 decades. It weakens all. The democratic ideals of Athens buckle under plague, war, and political instability. In the end, Sparta wins, but no one truly triumphs. And into this fractured world steps a new force, Macedon. But let us pause here. Let us picture the daily life of an Athenian artisan. The smell of fresh olive oil and honey cakes. The chisel tapping against marble. A child learning letters with a wax tablet. In the evening, families sit together as a bard recites a tale of heroes long gone. The Mediterranean light softens over terracotta rooftops. Statues cast long shadows in sacred courtyards. And in the hush between words, you can almost hear Socrates ask, "What is the good life?" As the wind stirs through the olive trees and the city falls into twilight, the Greeks, curious, restless, brilliant, have gifted the world with a new way of thinking. Let the sea carry their thoughts gently into your dreams. The sea, ever ancient and ever new, swells with ambition. By the 6th century BCE, while Greece polishes marble columns and sharpens its mind, another power has already emerged far to the east, the Persian Empire, the largest the world has yet seen. From the high plateaus of Iran, the Achaemenid dynasty under Cyrus the Great rises with a vision not merely of conquest, but of stewardship. Cyrus, in a gesture rare for his time, allows captive peoples, including the exiled Hebrews, to return to their homelands and rebuild. His successors, Cambyses and Darius the Great, expand Persian reach from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea, encompassing Babylon, Egypt, Asia Minor, and more. At its height, the empire stretches across 3 continents. Darius constructs the Royal Road, a marvel of logistics and connectivity, allowing swift communication across 1,500 miles. At Persepolis, the imperial capital, grand halls are carved with reliefs showing subject peoples bearing tribute: Ethiopians, Indians, Lydians, all distinct, all represented. The Persian administration is sophisticated. Satrapies, governorships, imperial couriers, a standardized currency, and a postal system that would not be rivaled for centuries. Yet in the Greek world, the Persians become a symbol of the other, opulent, autocratic, vast, and unknowable. And so begins the cycle of encounter and resistance. But Persia is not the only power to challenge the Greek imagination. West of Greece, across the Ionian Sea and into North Africa, lies a city founded by Phoenician traders, Carthage. Founded around 814 BCE, Carthage Court Hadast, or New City, is a beacon of commerce. Its harbors are shaped like crescents, its ships swift and sleek. Carthaginian merchants sail the western Mediterranean, trading gold, tin, wine, and precious dyes. They speak Punic, a Semitic tongue, and worship Tanit and Baal Hammon, their storm and fertility gods. Unlike the Greeks, who value debate and community ritual, Carthaginians prize navigation, economy, and empire. By the 5th century BCE, Carthage commands not only its home city, but also colonies in Sardinia, Sicily, and Spain. Their influence spreads silently not by philosophy, but by fleets and ledgers. Yet their world, too, is threatened by rising powers. To the north, in central Italy, small pastoral tribes are coalescing into something new, among them the Romans. In the early days around 753 BCE, according to legend, Romulus founds a city upon 7 hills beside the Tiber River. Born of myth, suckled by a she-wolf, Romulus is a figure of both wilderness and war. Rome begins as a monarchy, then expels its kings in 509 BCE to form a republic, a respublica, or public matter. Power is shared among magistrates, senators, and assemblies, though in practice, Rome is deeply hierarchical. Romans are not philosophers like the Greeks, nor merchants like the Carthaginians. They are builders, warriors, and lawgivers. They revere mos maiorum, the custom of the ancestors, and value virtues, gravitas, and pietas, manliness, seriousness, and religious duty. Their legions, disciplined and adaptable, carve Roman roads across the Italian peninsula. Rome expands slowly, absorbing enemies not through annihilation, but incorporation. They offer citizenship first partially, then fully, to allies and conquered peoples. In this way, Rome grows by inclusion as much as by the sword. By the 3rd century BCE, Carthage and Rome are on a collision course. The First Punic War erupts over control of Sicily, a crucial island that sits like a stepping stone in the central Mediterranean. The Romans, inexperienced at sea, quickly build a navy. Their determination is relentless. After 2 decades, they win. The Second Punic War, however, brings terror. Carthage sends a general named Hannibal, who does the unthinkable. He marches from Spain through Gaul across the Alps and into Italy with war elephants. For over a decade, Hannibal ravages the Italian countryside. At Cannae, he delivers Rome its worst defeat. Over 50,000 Romans die in a single day. But Rome does not break. It endures. It adapts. It outlasts. Eventually, Scipio Africanus, a brilliant Roman general, brings the war to Carthage's doorstep. At the Battle of Zama, in 202 BCE, Hannibal is defeated. Carthage is spared, but humiliated. A generation later, Rome strikes the final blow. The Third Punic War ends with the total destruction of Carthage. The city is razed, its people enslaved, and its lands sown with salt, or so the legend says. Rome now dominates the western Mediterranean, and with Greece weakened and Macedon fragmented, it turns eastward. In 146 BCE, Rome sacks Corinth. In the same year, Carthage is obliterated. 2 worlds, Greek and Phoenician, fall. And a new order emerges, the Roman Mediterranean. But this Roman world is not merely Latin. It is hybrid, syncretic. Roman generals admire Greek philosophy. Roman temples borrow Greek columns. Roman education includes Homer, Plato, and Aristotle. The Mediterranean becomes, for a time, a Roman lake, the Mare Nostrum, or our sea. Yet beneath this political consolidation lies a tapestry of older rhythms. The prayers of Etruscan priests, the songs of Greek bards, the merchant chants of Carthage, and in quiet villages along the Nile or Levant, farmers and scribes live as they have for centuries, following the stars, planting by the moon, and whispering ancient tales to their children. Let us imagine now a Phoenician captain watching his city burn, the harbor choked with smoke, the sea retreating from the fire's heat. He does not speak Latin, he does not know Plato, but he knows the sea, its cycles, its silence, its sorrow. He turns west, toward Spain, toward memory. The Mediterranean, even in conquest, remains a sea of encounters, of lost cities and lasting legacies, of difference and continuity. And as the night draws its veil across the waves, let us rest with this thought. Empires rise and fall, but the sea remembers them all. We begin in the early 1st century BCE, as the Mediterranean world breathes under a single dominant power, Rome. Its armies have subdued Greece, Carthage, Egypt, and Gaul. Its ships patrol every sea lane from the Pillars of Hercules to the Levantine coast. The sea, once a frontier, is now a corridor, a pathway of imperial order. Rome calls it the mare nostrum our sea, and it is. From every coastal province, Rome draws resources: Egyptian grain, Spanish silver, Levantine glass, African ivory, and in return it exports law, architecture, roads, Latin, and the ever-watchful presence of its eagles. But Rome is not merely a conquering machine. It is also an architect of connectivity. Its road system, vast and enduring, is the envy of all future empires. Over 50,000 miles of paved roads link cities, ports, and military posts. The phrase, "all roads lead to Rome," is not metaphorical, it is administrative reality. These roads are flanked by milestones, inscribed with the emperor's name and the distance to the capital. Along them travel governors, merchants, messengers, legionnaires, and families seeking new lives in distant provinces. The empire is also bound by its legal code. The jus gentium, or law of nations, governs subjects across different ethnicities, languages, and customs. And atop it all is the emperor, now the singular axis of Roman life. After the fall of the Republic in the 1st century BCE, civil wars rock the Roman world. Figures like Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus contend for power. But it is Octavian, later known as Augustus, who stabilizes the state. Augustus, the revered one, becomes Rome's first emperor in 27 BCE. His rule ushers in the Pax Romana, a 200-year period of relative peace and prosperity. The Mediterranean under Augustus is both unified and diverse. From the British Isles to the sands of Arabia, the empire stretches farther than Alexander ever dreamed. And in every corner, Roman urbanism takes root: forums, amphitheaters, aqueducts, and baths. Let us walk now through a provincial Roman city, perhaps Volubilis in North Africa, or Ephesus in Asia Minor. The streets are paved, lined with shops. The forum buzzes with debate and trade. Public baths are filled with citizens of many tongues: Latin, Greek, Berber, Syriac. Children study Virgil, Cicero, and Homer under the supervision of Greek tutors. Statues of emperors stand beside temples to Jupiter, Isis, and Mithras. This is Rome's genius, not erasure, but integration. Rather than abolish old gods, it adopts them. Egyptian Isis, Persian Mithras, even Syrian Atargatis find worshippers under Roman roofs. Roman soldiers stationed on distant frontiers marry local women, raise families, and retire in the lands they once occupied. In this way, the empire becomes both military and familial. Let us not forget the Mediterranean ports arteries of trade and culture. In Alexandria, scholars at the Great Library copy texts from across the known world. In Ostia, Rome's bustling harbor, cargo from across the empire is offloaded daily: amphorae of olive oil, garum, fish sauce, dates, and spices. The sea itself becomes a road. Roman merchant ships, built for bulk and endurance, crisscross its waters on reliable schedules. Lighthouses, like the famed Pharos of Alexandria, guide them safely to shore. Yet for all its might, Rome is not immune to tension. Slavery undergirds the empire. Millions labor in households, mines, farms, and cities: Greek tutors, Gallic gladiators, African servants. Though some gain freedom and even wealth, most remain voiceless in the machinery of empire. Social inequality grows. The gap between patricians and plebeians widens. In distant provinces, revolts simmer. In Judea, a rebellious province on the empire's eastern edge, discontent brews not just against taxation, but against Roman rule itself. And in this small corner of the empire, a quiet, radical message begins to spread of humility, justice, and a kingdom not of this world. The birth of Christianity in the 1st century CE, under Roman occupation, will one day reshape the entire Mediterranean. But for now, Rome remains dominant, outwardly serene, inwardly stretched. The emperors that follow, Augustus, Tiberius, Claudius, Nero, Hadrian, Marcus Aurelius, each leave their mark. Hadrian, in particular, exemplifies Roman balance. He travels the empire extensively, inspecting cities, fortifying borders. In Britain, he orders the construction of Hadrian's Wall, a symbol of Rome's limits. In Athens, he funds temples and libraries, honoring Greek heritage. His reign embodies the dual heart of Rome, Latin discipline and Greek intellect. But time is patient, and empires are mortal. By the 3rd century CE, the Pax Romana fades. Borders are breached, internal strife worsens. Plagues and economic troubles gnaw at the foundation. Still, the memory of Rome's unity of cities connected, seas tamed, peoples bound, lingers like a dream. Let us pause here, in a quiet Roman villa by the Mediterranean. The sun sets behind the cypresses. Olive trees rustle. Inside, a scribe copies a letter in Latin, while a Greek slave recites poetry. The matron of the house lights an oil lamp as the paterfamilias returns from the bathhouse. This world, ordered and alive, seems eternal. But even the greatest roads can crack, and the vast web of empire can fray. Still, the sea watches its waves lapping against Roman piers, its winds whispering to Phoenician memories, its depths echoing Egyptian prayers. The Mediterranean is no longer a place of fragmented shores. For a time, it becomes a Roman lake, vast, connected, and extraordinarily human. And as we drift gently through these waters, let us carry the echo of Rome's achievement and its fragility. The Roman world, once so steady in its rhythm, now begins to tremble. It is the 3rd century CE. Plagues sweep through cities. Trade routes flicker with uncertainty. Armies rise, not in defense of borders, but to claim the imperial purple. The crisis of the 3rd century sees over 20 emperors in just 50 years, many rising and falling by the sword. But something else is happening, something quiet, gradual, and spiritual. Across the empire's great cities, from Antioch to Rome, from Carthage to Ephesus, a new message spreads, a message of salvation, humility, and eternal life. The teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, once confined to a small community in Roman Judea, now ripple across the Mediterranean. His followers, known as Christians, reject the gods of Rome. They speak of one God, of love for the poor, of martyrdom over empire. At first, Rome responds with persecution. Christians are imprisoned, burned, thrown to beasts in the arena. But persecution only strengthens the movement. In the underground catacombs of Rome, the faithful gather by lamplight, singing psalms in whispers. In Alexandria, Christian philosophers debate Stoics and Neoplatonists. In North Africa, thinkers like Tertullian and Augustine pen works that blend Roman rhetoric with spiritual reflection. And then, a transformation. In the year 313 CE, the Emperor Constantine issues the Edict of Milan, legalizing Christianity. Just decades later, it becomes the empire's dominant faith. Churches rise beside temples. Bishops now wield political influence. The cross, once a symbol of shame, becomes an imperial banner. The old gods fade. Zeus, Isis, Mithras, their temples are left to ivy and silence. Their altars crumble. Their stories, once sung by sailors and sculptors alike, retreat into the echoes of memory. Rome itself becomes something new. In 330 CE, Constantine establishes a second capital, Constantinople, on the Bosporus, straddling Europe and Asia, a city of domes and mosaics, of holy relics and imperial councils. It will outlive its western twin by 1,000 years. The Western Roman Empire, weakened and fragmented, finally falls in 476 CE. Germanic tribes. The Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals sweep through Italy, Gaul, and Spain. Rome is sacked. Roads fall into disrepair. Aqueducts run dry. Urban life declines. But the Eastern Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, endures. Its heart remains Constantinople. Its language becomes Greek. Its soul, increasingly, is Christian. Yet the sea, the Mediterranean, does not forget. Even as empires change, faiths shift, and cities fall, the Mediterranean continues to connect. Merchants still cross its waters, pilgrims journey to Jerusalem, monks in Egypt trade letters with bishops in Gaul, ideas flow theology, science, medicine kept alive in monasteries and manuscript. In the south and east, a new faith emerges, Islam. In the 7th century, the followers of the Prophet Muhammad conquer vast territories including Egypt, Syria, and North Africa. They inherit the Mediterranean's classical legacy, translate Greek texts into Arabic, and build shining cities like Cordoba, Cairo, and Baghdad. The sea now links Christians, Muslims, and Jews in a dynamic, if fragile, web of trade, scholarship, and conflict. By the Middle Ages, the ancient Mediterranean has become a shared cultural memory, revered, debated, reinterpreted. Let us now step ashore one final time. We walk into a Byzantine church in Constantinople. Candles flicker. Incense coils in the air. The floor is of polished marble. Mosaics shimmer overhead. Christ, the Virgin, saints, angels. A priest chants in Greek. Outside, merchants call in Arabic, Latin, and Armenian. Sails drift along the Golden Horn. In every ripple of water is an echo of Tyre, Carthage, Alexandria, and Rome. Or perhaps we stand beside a crumbling Roman villa in southern Gaul. Ivy has overtaken its columns. A shepherd passes by, unaware of the philosophers who once dined there, of the senators who once governed its province. The stones are silent, but they remember. For the Mediterranean is not just a body of water. It is a mirror of civilization, a cradle of ideas, a theater of ambition and faith. It bore the ships of Odysseus, the triremes of Athens, the legions of Rome, and the gospel of Christ. It is a sea of memory. And even as we sleep, its waves continue whispering through time, washing against forgotten harbors, carrying dreams from shore to shore. As we bring this voyage to a close, let the sea rock you gently into rest. You have journeyed through millennia, from stone temples to sea-bound empires, from myth to manuscript. You have seen gods rise and fall, cities gleam and crumble, languages born and reborn. And now, as night deepens, let the voices of history fade into silence. Let the soft sound of imagined waves carry you inward. There is nothing more to remember now, nothing more to explore, just the rhythm of the sea and the quiet of memory. Good night.